Hey, founders, it's Tanya here. And I thought I would continue on with the theme that I've been on a roll with for the last couple of weeks, which is all about people and paychecks. Today, though, I want to specifically dial down on the topic of the three different categories of people that we can retain or recruit into our business. Because as a business owner, it's estimated that anywhere from 30 to 80% of our budget is going to be allocated to human capital. So it's really important that we get this right. So the three categories of people that we can recruit or retain, watch, I'm not using the word hire, very intentional, but the people that we can recruit and retain into our business are employees, consultants, and subcontractors. And each one of these categories actually come with very specific costs. And believe it or not, we budget for them in different places. So that's what I want to run through today with you. All right. So our first category, employee. The employees of our company are our mainstays, right? They are the pillars of our organization, and they are getting paid regardless of whether or not there were any sales or income generated by the business. Examples of employees could be the part-time admin assistant, could be the full-time customer care, could be the full-time general manager or CEO, aka you, right? When we look at where to budget for these individuals, because they are getting paid regardless of whether any income or sales have been generated, we are going to budget for these individuals under indirect cost, also known as operating expenses or fixed expenses. Now, in Nail the Numbers, we break down all of our operating costs into four different categories: team and personnel, sales and or space and operating, marketing and sales, and other, which includes loan repayments and interest and amortization and all that good stuff. But when we're budgeting for our employees, we budget for them under team and personnel because at the end of any month or quarter or year, at the end of any fiscal period, we want to be able to evaluate the productivity or the ROI that our people have generated for the company. That's why we budget for them there. Now, things that you want to watch out for in budgeting for employees, it's never just the hour or the salary that we've negotiated with that employee that we have to budget for. We have to budget for payroll deductions. So on average, you're going to be looking at anywhere from 1.2 to an extra 1.5 on that negotiated rate to account for things like CPP, Canadian Payroll Pension, or sorry, Canadian Pension Plan, EI, employment insurance, vacations, and WCB. That's excluding any benefits that go above and beyond. So it's really important that you speak to your payroll specialist or your bookkeeper or your accountant, because every province and or industry is going to have different rates that you need to budget for each one of those. Now, if you want more information, we did a video on this. I did a video not too long ago. I think it's the 5 factors to take into account for payroll deductions. So there's a table there, but again, make sure that you know those costs specifically as they pertain to your industry and province. Second category is the consultant. So the consultant is typically an individual with highly specialized area of expertise. We typically recruit this individual for a temporary period of time and or it's project specific, right? Now, these individuals are also getting paid regardless of whether or not there's any sales or income being generated by the business. Now, examples of consultants, I'm getting ahead of myself, could be your virtual assistant. It could be your marketing guru, right? Your social media person that you bring in, or your social media or your marketing strategist that you bring in. It could be your fractional CFO. So these individuals are coming into the business. They're getting paid regardless of whether sales or income have been generated, but specifically for a small amount of time and for a very specific task. Now, these individuals we are going to budget for still in indirect costs, but likely we're going to budget for them either under space and operating and or sales and marketing. So it's specific to the operation, the business operation that they're dedicating that expertise to, right? So obviously your social media consultant, you would budget for under marketing and sales, right? So hopefully that makes sense to you. Now, what to watch out for when you're budgeting for your consultants is your consultants are going to be issuing you an invoice for the work that they have performed. Now, before they issue you an invoice, I'd encourage you that you get a proposal or a statement of work from them that articulates that scope of work. So here are the fees that we're asking, any additional costs like per diems or travel or materials or parking, right? Make sure that's all bundled into it. And of course, make sure that the terms are clearly outlined with respect to the payment schedule and when those funds are going to become due. So that's how we are going to budget for our consultants. Now, our third category is our subcontractors. Now, subcontractors, again, come with highly specialized areas of expertise, but unlike the consultants, the subcontractors we are bringing into our business to perform a very specific task that is directly attached to the product or service we are delivering to the end user, to the client. So examples of subcontractors, if we're a home builder, it would be our trades, right? It would be the roofer and the floor. I don't know if it's a floor. The cabinet maker could be the team that is doing the drywalling, right? These are companies or individuals that you are going to retain to actually help you in delivering that final product or service. So these individuals we budget for in direct costs because their role is directly attached to the product or service that we are selling. Okay, crystal clear, I hope. So things that you need to watch for, very similar to our consultant, we want to make sure that they're giving us a scope of work, that they're giving us that proposal ahead of time, right? And that fee schedule so that we can budget for it accordingly. We also, like consultants, want to make sure that we're taking into account any provincial or state taxes that they are going to be charging us for that work. So in Canada, we are not going to budget for the GST, but any provincial tax that they charge us for, we want to make sure that we're budgeting for that because that we do not get back, right? That's not a wash at the end of the year. So making sure that we are clear on that. Now, one other important note with subcontractors is like consultants, they're expected to carry their own insurance, including WCB. Again, I'm speaking to Canadian business owners here. But here's the thing, what we might need to do is we might need to budget for some of our labor, right? To make sure that we're doing our due diligence, to make sure that that individual has the proper coverage and we're getting the necessary paperwork in place to make sure that that coverage is there. Because depending on where you live or where your business is, you might be held responsible to covering those costs on behalf of that individual if they don't have those expenses in place specifically for themselves. Okay, so I hope that was clear on those three categories. Now, one other important note here is when it comes to consultants and or subcontractors, right? CRA actually is the one that defines if that individual is a consultant or a contractor or not. So they have very specific guidelines. And in the notes below, I have included a link to those guidelines because it's important that you research that and know going in if this individual would be, in the eyes of CRA, categorized as a consultant and or, right, an employee. Because if CRA comes in and says, no, that individual would actually be considered an employee, they may charge you retroactively for those source deductions, those CPP and EI funds that you were not collecting because you thought they were a consultant and or subcontractor. So really important that you understand those terms going into it. And a big one is if that individual or company that is billing you is generating over 80% of their revenue from you as one source, it is likely that that individual is going to be considered an employee of the company. So things to watch for going forward. And this video is being produced as of February 8th, 2024. So things change all the time. Make sure you're working with your bookkeeper and accountant to make sure that you're locking in on those details. So there you have it. The bottom line is this. It's really important that regardless of who you're bringing into the business, you've got to know who's who. Are they going to be the employee? Are they going to be a consultant? Or are they a subcontractor? Because you've got to know where to budget for them and exactly what additional costs you've got to take into consideration there. All right, this is Tanya signing out. Hopefully that was helpful. I want to remind you, though, that in order to nail your numbers, you need to know them. So I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now. Have a great day. Make it count.